G'day everyone, welcome back to True Eagle. Let's talk about our round one loss to Port Adelaide. First thing I will say is it's just really interesting to gauge the online reaction, and I do this too much. I go and look what people are saying out of curiosity. And it's just kind of funny how it seems to be that the general consensus is anything under 10 goals, gee, that'd be a great win. And then we lose by 50, which is 10 points less than 10 goals, and people still collectively seem to lose their minds. So my take from the game, I think it was kind of, 6 out of 10. I don't want to give us too much credit. It's not as though we played out of our skins or really challenged them, but I certainly think at times we gave them plenty to think about. There were, crucial moments where I think we got the margin to 2 or 3 goals right before halftime, only to concede 2 late goals, and that was kind of just the flow all day. There were periods where we played pretty well, I thought. Definitely showed signs of improvement, and we'll go through some key metrics and statistics throughout this game to analyse that, but it also just felt like the minute we lapsed, Port Adelaide were able to put on some scoreboard pressure. So I think there is definitely this clear trend of people maybe hyper-focusing on the actual margin of 50 points. Yeah, Port Adelaide probably are an 8-goal better side, but at Adelaide Oval, that's to be expected. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they start beating teams that are contending for the 8 by 50 points, let alone a side that is pretty much knee-deep in a rebuild right now. So the margin doesn't concern me, but we'll go through some of the mechanics of this game. Obviously, there's some good and bad. I'm not necessarily stoked, but I'm not at all really gutted the way that game played out. I think we all, or some people, I don't mean to generalize, but there seems to be this cognitive dissonance that people have with the Eagles right now. It's, low expectations, just accept a pretty good effort, and then when that effort comes, they want to sack Simo after one round. But anyway, I thought the game started well, relatively well. It was 19-24 at quarter time, so just down by 5 points. In particular, Tim Kelly was getting his hands on the footy, Harley Reid was getting his hands on the footy, playing a lot of time on ball. We'll talk about centre bounce attendances as well, because there's some interesting stats from that I didn't actually pick up on during the game, but looking back on it, very interesting reading. After that, I think someone went to tag Kelly. He was a little bit disappointing after that. Not a huge amount of impact. Harley Reid as well, I think played a lot forward. Might have also copped a tag after his 8 possession first quarter. And can I just say as well on Harley Reid, there's another interesting thing that people are doing as well. Again, hyper-focusing on disposals. We were doing the live stream on True Footy, and after an 8-touch first quarter, there were comments in the stream going, gee, Harley Reid's great. And then one possession in the second quarter, so 9 to half time, there were then comments saying, wow, Harley Reid is so shit. And I realize as I'm saying this, I'm probably exposing myself too much to what people are saying, because I'm often referencing, what the consensus is from other people, but I'm doing my best to involve myself in the community of True Footy, True Eagle, listen to what people are saying, but some of it has been very silly. But anyway, let's go through this game. So to summarize, I think where we got burnt in this game really badly was on transition. The contested stuff was actually pretty good, okay? And this was the stuff that we were, talking about trying to improve and make part of our game. So clearances, we're not a great clearance side. We were the 3rd worst last year at it, and Port Adelaide were the top 5, and yet we nearly broke even with them. It was 35 to 30 clearances, contested possessions as well. Again, a weakness of ours, 110 to 105. So I kind of give us a tick for that. If we can almost match it with a pretty good side with some really good midfielders, that's fine. Where we got burnt was the outside, and it's not the first time this has happened either. This is a real big weakness for us. So 225 uncontested possessions Port Adelaide had to 166, so 60 more. They also had nearly 100 more marks than us. The fact that we only had 69 marks for this game shows that we just couldn't control a footy, which is kind of ironic because that used to be what we would build our game around, and then that ultimately saw us bypassed in this league, and now we just can't control it. But that's fine. And when I say that's fine, I just mean that I didn't expect us to have fixed every single issue by round 1. We were also out-tackled 44 to 35, which is a bit disappointing, but overall, I don't think the energy was poor. There was some poor performances this week, and in particular from some senior guys and some other guys that you'd expect us to be our best players. And we will go through specifics as well. But I don't think I could really think of anyone who just didn't try today. And I know it's a low baseline, but it's a step in the right direction. We also only had 40 inside 50s, which is disappointing. But we scored 70 points, which is kind of a bit above our average. And I would still argue while both sides left goals on the table, we probably missed some gettable ones. Let's highlight positives. I think the biggest positive for me, or at least the one that got me the most pleased from it, was Campbell Chesser. Obviously a player that was sort of teetering on becoming a whipping boy, unfairly in my opinion, missed a lot of football, started to really look a lot more composed by the end of the year last year, and I think his best performances came this week. Obviously comes on as a sub, fresh legs, able to get to a few contests. I think he won a couple of clearances, number of score involvements, kicks his first AFL goal on the siren, and it was a really good one too. And I'm just really pleased that he might take some confidence from that. I think what he needs is to build belief that he belongs, because he's got, athletic gifts. So he's a good footballer, a good contested player. Kicking lacks a little bit of polish, but again, I think some of that is composure, and he'll just need to find time to get more relaxed at AFL level. But I'm pleased about that. I think Jack Petrocelli as well was one of our best players. 3 goals. Harley Reid, 16 touches, 5 clearances. Again, I'm not sure what his time on ground would have been. I think it was quite low, but he also spent a fair bit of time forward, and at one point, I think they even put a tagger on him. He's already a good player. He really is. If he's getting opportunities to find the footy, like, he uses it so well, so composed. I think he's clearly, I don't know where he'd rank, in terms of quality on our team at the moment, but he is already a good AFL footballer, and it's only taken him 1 game. Elliot Yeo was impactful. I would have still liked to see a few more possessions. I know that's probably a superficial way of looking at it. He won 5 clearances, and him being back in the midfield and winning the ball and at least halving some contests that he's not necessarily winning did have an impact in this game, and the clearance stats obviously weren't too bad. That being said, you look statistically at the Eagles team, and it kind of looks like a Richmond stat sheet. Like when Richmond would win a game, they would often not have that many players that would get 20 plus possessions, and I'm not trying to compare us to like peak Richmond by any stretch of the imagination, but weird game where no one really seemed to stand out. Even last year we'd have Tim Kelly get 28 touches. That didn't really happen in this game. But again, Bailey Williams I will credit. Obviously got beaten in the hitouts by Ivan Soldo. 7 clearances though. More clearances than any other Eagle, which is impressive. So that's my positive slant on the game. Let's talk about some negatives. I think some of the poorest performances, in fact, the 3 lowest ranked Eagles on the field today were all senior players. Okay, so specifically, Andrew Gaff had 4 touches when he was subbed out. I think if he doesn't get dropped this week, he will never get dropped. And, I don't want to be brutal on him because I think he's trying. He's just cannot get his hands on the footy, which I never thought I'd see the day. A couple of years ago, even if you told me that Gaff, was fading towards the end of his career, I'd imagine he's getting 25 touches and butchering it. No, he's not even finding the footy at the moment. And when Campbell Chesser comes in, doubles his possession count, kicks a goal, admittedly with fresh legs, I don't think you can make the claim that Andrew Gaff can't get dropped this week. So that was disappointing. I think Tom Barrass also definitely had his colours lowered. I think Charlie Dixon's a tough opponent for him because McBrass is an intercept player and Dixon is such a strong contested player. Contested marking in general, that's not really Barrass's game. That being said, that does not mean that he could have played a lot better and definitely had a dirty day. 4 touches, really no impact. So I was disappointed with Barrass, of course. Jack Darling as well, only 4 touches. Now, out of those 3 senior players, Darling is the one I'm probably a little bit more relaxed about. Maybe relaxed isn't the best word, but maybe a little bit more forgiving about. I mean, he missed a whole chunk of the preseason with a hamstring. He just didn't look fit. And in fairness, the only times I really saw Darling near the ball were when we had forward entries in the first quarter and they were kicking to his ankles, kicking to his shins. So my point being is not, it's fine, Darling, that you sucked. I just don't think drop him. I think structurally he's still important. Give him a few weeks to work into it. Let's not overreact, but no doubt, 3 senior players being the bottom 3 players on the field, it indicates some upside, but at the same time, disappointing. And I will probably throw our captains in there as well as not having a good game. Again, not through lack of effort. So Oscar Allen, again, he's had gastro this week and it showed. Couldn't run defensively, wasn't really much of an impact. Again, I'm sure this is just the gastro. I think this guy's proven he's an absolute star footballer. Liam Duggan was also off in this game. His radar in particular was poor. Now, I'll get the CBAs up in a minute, the centre bounce attendances. No Eagle spent more time at the centre bounces than Liam Duggan. So you'd think he'd, win a handful of clearances. No, he won 1 clearance. He also went at 47% efficiency, only touched the ball 17 times, did kick a nice goal, but had some horrific turnovers as well. And I think it was a dirty day for Liam Duggan. We also conceded 40 shots at goal. Now, I'm not necessarily going to agree with those who say just because Port Adelaide kicked 16 goals for 24, they should have won this game by 100 points. It didn't feel that way. I don't think Port Adelaide looked 100 points better than us. 50 points is fair. 50 points is generous. Like I said, I think they really just scored in clumps when we really dropped off. But there were times where we were matching with them, and I thought that was okay. I think a lot of their missed shots didn't really come from gimmies. It's not like they were just burning us through the middle and missing in front of the goal square. They were having shots from the pocket or whatever. So it was a little bit like us against Fremantle in the preseason game. We kicked 5 goals, 16. You can't really make the argument we should have scored 16 goals, 5 because a lot of our attempts were not great attempts. So I think 50 points is about right. I think that's about right for where we're at. And I think that's all we could have realistically expected considering Port Adelaide are a good team. And we will learn, in 5 weeks' time, Port Adelaide might be 1-5. And this result will look worse. But on the available data, I don't think that game played out like we were getting beaten up by a poor team. And it is interesting that both sets of fans are disappointed with a 50-point margin, which means the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, which is, I think it's about right. So before we wrap up, I will go through these centre bounce attendances, which were posted on Big Footy. So Liam Duggan had 85 or 86% attendances at centre bounces. So that was we were a little bit blindsided by that. So they talked about Duggan as a midfielder. They didn't use him once there in the midfield in the preseason games, and then he plays more time there than any other player. Bailey Williams, the obvious exception there. Tim Kelly, 71%, so that's still not quite as much. I would have thought, you'd have him in there more than Duggan. Elliot Yeo, 64%. Can imagine why they didn't put him at every centre bounce. Harley Reid, 42.9, so that's pretty solid, and I think his output reflects that. But look at Ruben Jinby, 20%. He had way less than Harley Reid. He had less than Liam Duggan by a long way. Less than ideal, in my opinion. I found it hard to assess Jinby's game because I just didn't really see him at the coalface that much. I'm not even really sure where he played, to be completely honest. The next were Petruccelli, Jamison, and Cripps. So another one that's obviously missing there is Tyler Brockman. I'd imagine because he missed a lot of the preseason, they thought, we'll give your centre bounces to Cripps. We might see that change over the next few weeks. But yeah, interesting development there with Jinby. I don't mind it in theory because still building up his game, get him involved playing the back line. That's fine, but I do think it would have been nice to see him in there a little bit more and a little bit less of Liam Duggan, who I think was quite poor today. Even just Jinby's attributes of being fast and a good defensively minded midfielder. Sure, he has his limitations of winning the football. He doesn't win a lot of the football yet, but he's also got to learn by playing there. I'm not saying he'd play him necessarily 86% of centre bounces like Liam Duggan saw, but I would have thought that gap would be a lot tighter. So yeah, general thoughts, wasn't great, wasn't bad. I thought we looked good at times, and I think that's what we can realistically expect. I think if you're a fan that's expecting that to be way below average this year, then I think you are going to have a tough time supporting this team, because I think Port Adelaide are a good side. If Essendon had gone to Adelaide Oval and lost by 50 points, would anyone really bat an eyelid? Nah, because Port's a pretty good side. And Essendon are probably 11th to 13th on rankings. Yet, if we, just coming off a wooden spoon, have the same performance, it seems like the end of the world and we haven't improved. And I don't think there's evidence of that yet. So it's just early days. We didn't really see the signs truly that we've become a completely different team, but certainly didn't see the same red flags I saw last year. So hopefully onwards and upwards from here. But let me know in the comments, guys, what you think of this particular performance. I'll probably do a preview of the GWS game. And other than that, I will see you in the next video, guys. Cheers.